It's totally natural to have fears, anxieties, and doubts in your marriage or in your romantic relationship. But sometimes those fears, those anxious thoughts, are so loud that they're all you can hear. And are they rational or irrational? Should you listen to them or not? How can you tell? And if they are irrational thoughts, what do you do about them? How do you make them go away? That is what we are going to talk about today. I am Rachael Sloan. I help anxious people save their marriages by overcoming intrusive thoughts and irrational ones in just 30 days. Today, I'm going to help you identify and change your irrational thoughts about your relationship. The first key to changing an irrational thought is recognizing that you're having one in the first place. So how do you do that? There are a couple simple markers of irrational thoughts. They are words like can't, shouldn't, always, never again, forever, everything, nothing. Right? These are words that are really exaggerating. We say things, let me give you a bunch of examples of irrational thoughts, and then we'll talk about them. But I want you to look at how these words, these qualifiers, are exaggerated. Right? They are a little overblown. They are not objectively fully true. Here are some irrational thoughts with these classic markers. Remember, can't, always, never, shouldn't, forever, everything, nothing. You catch yourself using these words when you're talking to yourself or other people. It's a surefire sign you're dealing with an irrational thought. Here are some examples. I can't live without him, right? I can't live without him. Is that true? Like you will actually die and stop breathing if he leaves, right? It's not objectively true. It's an exaggeration. I can't live without this person. Of course you can live. You can still eat. You can still breathe, right? Unless he is like literally giving you chest compressions right now. Unless he's giving you CPR, you can live without this person. If she leaves, I'll never be okay again, right? I'll never be okay again. That is a pretty serious statement. Never, not even for a single moment, right? I'll never be able to trust again. That's when we say a lot. Or I can't trust now because I've always been hurt in the past, right? She's everything to me and always will be. We have to be together forever or I'll never be okay again, right? You hear these words, never, always, can't, have to. These are signs of exaggerated thoughts in your relationship. And it doesn't seem like such a big deal, right? You might be like, yeah, whatever. I know I don't mean I can't live without him, right? Obviously, I don't mean I can't live without him. But your brain is a literal animal. It does not take these nuances. It believes what you say. We've talked about this before, that your brain is kind of like a child who hasn't figured out that you lied about Santa Claus yet. It just thinks everything you say is true, no matter how fantastical or unrealistic it is. Your brain believes you. It buys into all of this stuff. So when you say, I can't live without him, she's everything to me, I'll never be okay again, your brain believes you. And it behaves as though that was true. It generates emotions in your body like despair, desperation, overwhelm in response to these thoughts. It drives you to take certain actions to try everything you possibly can to stay with this person, because if you can't live without them, if your brain really believes you cannot live without this person, what lengths will it go to? Right? We are designed to survive. You tell yourself you cannot live without this person, now you will do almost anything to get them to stay with you. Right? And you see this in the way people behave in relationships, in the way we act towards our partners, these desperate acts that are not in our best interest, are not in our partner's best interest. They're based on these beliefs that we say, oh yeah, I say that, but it's not true. Your brain hears it. It thinks it's true. You have to be very, very careful how you talk to yourself and how you talk to other people, because your brain is listening, and it is that wide-eyed little child that's like, ooh, the Easter Bunny's coming, the Easter Bunny's coming, has no idea that there is not a giant pink bunny that is really going to come and hide eggs for it and jelly beans, right? That is your brain. Powerful as your brain is, amazing as your brain is, it is gullible, and it believes the things that you say to it. So be careful when you use this exaggerated language. Those are your irrational thoughts that are making you miserable in your relationship. It's thoughts characterized by can't, never, always, forever, have to, won't. Right? These are the words that create suffering in your irrational thoughts. So there's nothing, this isn't bad, right? This doesn't mean that you're bad or crazy. It's just your brain being a little bit dramatic. You're being a little bit dramatic, and your brain is buying into that. So keep an eye out for these thoughts, and if you don't know if you're having them, start journaling. Journaling can be so useful for identifying these. Just let yourself have a brain dump, write down everything in your mind, and then scan through and look for words like this. Always, can't, never, forever, have to, won't, right? I won't survive without him. He has to stay with me. If she leaves, I'll never trust again. Right? Write these thoughts down. They're much easier to identify on paper because if you start looking for them in your mind, you'll be like, yeah, well, I don't really believe that. You'll have a hard time seeing what you actually say to yourself. So write them down. And then when you catch one, intentionally choose a different thought that you're going to practice thinking regularly instead. And when I say choose a different thought, I don't mean pick a positive affirmation. Because what we're doing here, you have a neural pathway that is well worn in your brain. You've been practicing the irrational thought, I can't live without him. If she leaves, I'll never trust again. Right? You've been practicing that thought over and over. It's well worn. It's easy for your brain to go there. You need to create a new neural pathway, a different neural pathway, a rational, intentional thought that you can think instead. But the thing about that new thought is it cannot be a big, beautiful, positive affirmation that you don't believe, because your brain is too smart for that stuff, right? I know I just said it was super gullible. It's only gullible if it's like already inclined to believe what you're saying. So if you already have like these feelings and doubts about your relationship, and then you say, I can't live without him, your brain's like ready to jump on that. It wants to believe it because it fits with its whole like story about how you're not good enough, or they never really loved you anyway, or they're your soulmate but they don't know it. Whatever your story is, your own insecurities, that thought supports it. So your brain's willing to believe it, jumps right on board. If you try to replace it with a thought like, I'll be totally fine if he leaves, won't even bother me, that doesn't fit with your story, right? It doesn't fit with your mental list, your own insecurities, your own beliefs about yourself and relationships. It doesn't fit in. So your brain's not going to buy that, right? As gullible as it is, it's only gullible when it's like a story it wants to believe that fits in with its current worldview. You start trying to tell it things that are totally outside that current worldview, like, oh, I'll have no problem ever trusting somebody again. Just because she cheated on me doesn't mean, no one is ever going to cheat on me again. And I just know that's true. You can't pick a thought like that. Your brain's like, no, doesn't fit with our worldview. Sorry, not buying it. Totally going to believe that we're going to die without this person, right? Your brain's willing to believe the catastrophic thought because it fits with the insecurities with the worldview you currently have. So you can't just make a huge jump to an unrealistic thought. You have to choose what's called a ladder thought. It's like a stepping stone, something that feels a little bit better than the current thought you had, but is more realistic. So you can use words like sometimes, some people, it's possible that, even I am open to believing that. So let's look at some of these thoughts, right? I can't live without him. It's possible that I could live without him. I'm open to believing that I might be okay someday, even if he leaves. Right? You hear how different that is than saying, I'll be fine without him. I don't even care if he leaves, right? It's not realistic. It's too big of a jump from your current thought, which is I can't live without him. But to say it's possible that even if he leaves someday, I'll be okay again. That's believable. And it feels slightly better than I can't live without him. And you're not conditioning your brain to believe, to panic that you really are going to die without this person. Another example would be, if she leaves, I'll never be okay again. Okay, so how could we change that? If she leaves, it's possible that I might be okay again. Some people have been left and then found true love later on, right? Some people have been happy after a divorce. We could have something like, she's everything to me and always will be. That sounds beautiful, right? That sounds like a nice thought, but it can make you feel that desperate feeling that they have to stay there with you, right? Because if she's everything to you and something happens to her or she chooses to leave, then what are you left with, right? So she's everything to me and always will be. You could think something like, she means so much to me and I really love her. But there are other things in my life that are also important, right? There are other people in my life. It's possible that there are other things in my life that bring me joy. Sometimes I'm happy even when we're not together. Right? So you're finding a little step, a little thought, a little shift away from these absolutes. I'll never trust again. I can't live without them. We have to stay together forever. She's everything to me. We're just modifying those words a little bit and say it's possible that sometimes maybe I could be okay someday, right? Making a little step, a little jump away from that absolute thought, which is not based in reality. Those absolute thoughts are the irrational thoughts. And you're taking a little baby step towards something more rational that feels better and allows you to act from a place of greater calm, of greater peace. It's moving you towards the way you want to feel in your relationship and away from that desperate, anxiety, worried, fearful place where you're sure you are going to die alone, unloved, under a bridge, probably from COVID-19, right? That's where we don't want your brain to go. When you notice it going there, find a little baby thought and practice that little ladder thought, practice that step, make that new neural pathway so that you have an alternative way of thinking available to you when you need it. All right, guys, let's do a quick recap for those of you joining us later. Irrational or exaggerated thoughts can be ID'd by the prepositions you use. Never, always, impossible, everything, forever. Also verbs like can't, shouldn't, won't, have to. Okay, these are all markers of exaggerated thoughts, of irrational thoughts. There's nothing wrong with you for having these. We all have them. They are just a learned habit, a learned pattern of thinking. But you do have to be careful because your brain listens when you talk and it takes what you're saying literally. So if you say, I have to do everything I can to make him love me, well, your brain's going to believe you have to, or there's going to be serious consequences. Right? So these irrational thoughts, even though they're normal and they're something you've been taught to do, they don't help you. They don't serve you because your brain believes them, right? It believes them too fully. So you can change these thoughts by building new neural pathways, by choosing new thoughts on purpose with intention. But make sure that you don't choose a thought that's too far, too distant from what you currently believe. Right? Don't choose a thought that is a positive affirmation because it won't stick. If you don't believe a thought, it's not going to do you any good, even if you say it to yourself 1,000 times a day. What you've got to do is choose a ladder thought, a stepping stone that feels a little better than your current absolute belief, your current irrational thought, and takes you a little bit closer to what's realistic, to what's rational, that feels a little bit better. So choose those ladder thoughts. I'd love to hear from you in the comments and let me know if this technique was helpful for you, and if so, what thoughts, what irrational, exaggerated thoughts you've noticed yourself having about your relationship. And for those of you watching on YouTube, please remember to subscribe and click the bell to turn on notifications because I will be putting out a lot of videos helping you understand why you're anxious in your relationship, why you get worried, and how to overcome those things, how to silence those intrusive thoughts so you can really enjoy being in a relationship with someone you love. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.